Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elite Coaching Blueprint Podcast. On today's episode, I am going to show you possibly one of the most valuable things I could ever show you when it comes to growing your coaching business, getting more leads, getting more clients, nurturing people in your pipeline, and making your life easier. And we call this the daily marketing block. This is going to be the solution that comes around and solves all of your problems with regards to what do I post? Why am I post not converting people into clients? I don't know what to do every single day to market the business and grow the business. This is something that we showed to our clients yesterday in a webinar, and we basically broke it down. I've had multiple messages already through yesterday and this morning basically saying it's a complete game changer. And for me, I know this was a game changer too, because for the longest time, I'd been working with coaches and mentors when I was growing my fitness business. And the blanket advice that I had been given was post more value, send more DMs. Oh, you're not sending that DM to 85-year-old Margaret, even though your niche is, coaches who want to do photo shoots. Okay, cool. Well, you're obviously not working hard enough. I was getting that kind of feedback. So today I'm going to show you how to actually do a proper marketing block, and everything that you're going to see today: email, long form, multiple pieces of content a day, outbound lead generation to warm leads, no cold DMs here, and lead generation strategies that get your leads and audience to raise their hands and show they're interested in your coaching. I'm going to show you how to do all of this before you've even had your lunch. Now, I know that sounds too good to be true, but the reality of the situation is most coaches are playing their content, their marketing, their lead generation game on the most difficult mode possible. And it does not have to be that way. And I want to show you a better way. And we call this the daily marketing block. So this is how we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to run through essentially a way that you can take one idea and you can turn that one idea into multiple streams of content. The first thing you'll be able to do is you're going to be able to create a long form piece of content every single day. This could be a podcast like this one you're listening to here. It could be a YouTube video, or you could be sharing your podcast onto YouTube and stuff like that. And you're also going to be able to take that podcast or YouTube episode that you've done and turn that into multiple clips without doing anything off the back of it. This is all automated, which is excellent. You're going to be able to take your podcast or your idea and turn that into an email for the day, the topic. In fact, 2 emails you're going to be able to get out of this, which is incredible. You're going to be able to create an organic piece of social media content like a reel or a carousel off the back of all of this. You're going to be able to run a lead generation strategy, which gets your leads to raise their hands and say, hey, I'm interested in what you do. And you're going to be able to have more conversations with warm leads who actually want to talk to you off the back of this. No cold DMs, no feeling smarmy, no having to chase people up. You're getting people actually come to you and speak to you about what you do as a coach. Now, if that sounds too good to be true, then I want to prove you wrong. So listen in terms of how we do this. Now, the core concept here is ultimately every single day you solve problems for your clients, right? You solve problems that you are an expert in, and you show them how to essentially get the outcome they want. Whether you're a fat loss coach or weight loss coach, which are the same things, a muscle building coach, you do photo shoots, whether you work with specific niches, whether I almost said niches or niches there, which is very American, niches, whether you work with, powerlifters or people who do certain sports and you're a performance coach, it does not matter what this is. Every single one of you guys solve problems every single day for your clients. And this is where we start our journey off. We essentially are wanting to say, what do we need to do, or what do we need to say to our audience to show them that we are an authority, we can solve their problems, and that we can help them. So the easiest way you can go about this, you can come up with content ideas in a million different ways. That's not what we're here to talk about today. But one of the easiest ways you can do this is you can come up with a solution that you did for your clients this week, or that you gave within a check-in piece of feedback. Hey, here's a problem that I solved and here's how we did it. And we're going to go and show our audience how we solve this problem. It could also be things that you feel are quite pertinent right now, things that are really important for the world to see right now. This podcast episode that you're listening to right now came off the back of essentially what I've been seeing in the industry for the longest time, which is that blanket advice of send more DMs, give more value, blah, blah, blah. There's this kind of blanket advice going out at the minute as well of build your personal brand, which is great, but it, again, doesn't really help you in terms of actually, moving people towards becoming a client if there's no strategy behind it. And a lot of the advice is around just putting things out there. But just putting things out there is a post and hope strategy. Unless you actually have a framework to take someone from a follower or a non-follower into a follower, move them up the buying cycle, and then get them to a place where they're ready to buy from you, then you're going to lose every single time. And this is what we want to do here. Okay. So before we dive into today, I want to talk to you about the buying timeline. Okay, if you imagine this, we have a person up here, and if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube or anything, if you're listening to this, there is a visual element to this, so it will help if you see this, but I will do my best to explain it. What I want you to imagine is out in the world, we have something called the sea of socials. And the sea of socials is basically every single person who is on social media, whether they follow you or not. These are people who are out there in the audience, and you are trying to get people from the sea of socials into your audience, so at least they follow you and they can see your stuff on a regular basis. So the goal here initially is to create content which brings people into our audience, okay? Once people are in our audience, we then need to get them to a point where they are happy to buy from us, right? So I want you to picture this, if you're listening to this episode, as a timeline from left to right. On the left, we have nothing, and on the right-hand side, we have a little bracket called the buy zone, okay? Our goal is to get people into the buy zone. Now, the buy zone is essentially where someone feels that they are comfortable enough with you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, they see you as someone who can solve their problems enough that they go, you know what, I'm going to take the, let's give a reasonable level of respect here. There is a level of there's a level of risk involved with signing up for anything, right? They have a comfortable level enough with you that they feel like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take the leap here. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Before the buy zone, we also have something called the on the fence zone. This is people who are kind of pretty much ready to buy from you, but right this second, they just need a little extra nudge to get across the line to buy from you. We actually cover this in one of the other episodes of the podcast. If you want to hear about this a little bit more, I believe it was something along the lines of how to get leads and clients in 2026. So if you want to listen to this a little bit more in depth, you can go listen to that one after this. So our goal is essentially over time on this timeline is we want to give our leads even, or our audience, enough content with us that they can move along this timeline bit by bit. And every single time someone who follows you sees a reel or listens to a podcast or sees a long form piece of content or gets an email from you, could be, or maybe they have a conversation with you, doesn't matter what it is. Every time they interact with you and your brand, this is something that moves them along the timeline. Now, if it's a reel, it's something that is maybe 45 seconds, 60 seconds. It's not super long. That has a very small effect of moving someone along. If someone downloads, for example, a lead magnet and they get some great value out of it, or they watch a YouTube video of yours, they listen to a podcast of yours, they're taking a much bigger leap along this timeline. And the reality of the situation is we know that at any point, people need to consume around 3 to 7 hours to move along this timeline of your content and your brand. We call this brand width. Okay, so people need about 3 to 7 hours of brand width with your brand to make a purchasing decision. So this means that if you're just feeding out content and posts and carousels on social media like Instagram or TikTok every single day, people have an opportunity of about 45, 60 seconds, 90 seconds per time to move them along the buying timeline. Now, as social media content is, not all of our people who follow us see all of our content. We know that on any given day, about 5 to 10% of our audience at any one point is going to see our posts. So that is, one side of things. But we also know that not everyone who sees our posts watches them all the way through. So we have to show someone a shit ton of reels and videos and carousels and posts and them seeing our stories and stuff to get them to the point where they've seen 3 to 7 hours of our time. This can take months and months and months and months and months of people just slowly moving along this timeline before they get to the end of the timeline and get to the buy zone. If we feed people longer form content, then that can speed this journey up, because the value or the amount of time that someone's going to spend with you watching 1 or 2 reels is maybe a minute or 2. Whereas if someone listens to a podcast with you or watches a YouTube video with you, they're spending maybe 10, 20, 15, 45 minutes, an hour with you and your brand, consuming in your ideas, seeing how you work, getting to know you, building that kind of parasocial relationship, and ultimately moving them along that timeline at a way faster rate. So what we have to understand here is that all types of content are really valuable to move people along that timeline, but the ones that really have the hard-hitting effects are things like long-form content, podcasts, YouTube video, and then also things like lead magnets, which will move people along the timeline a lot faster, okay? That means that if someone listens to an hour podcast of yours and they binge some of your content, let's say over the course of a couple of weeks, they listen to 1 or 2 podcasts a week, they're very quickly going to move along this timeline a lot faster. I also think there is a massive added value of the kind of compound effect of seeing a long form piece of content versus, let's say you've got a podcast that's 30 minutes long. If someone listened to 31 minutes videos from you separately, I think that the podcast actually has a substantially higher level of impact purely because it is a compound effect. You're able to go in more detail. You're able to show off your personality more. You're able to essentially kind of talk to them in a way that you would show how you're working with them, which is really important. And also it kind of like leverages this sort of compound effect because they're consuming every minute. They're getting more and more from you. It adds and there's more volume to it. I think individual reels are great, but they have less of that kind of compound effect happening step by step. So the goal here is really that we want a varied set of content, because what happens over time is we move people to this buy zone and they get ready to buy. Okay, so if we know that we need various types of content and strategies and long form and short form and all those other good things, what's the best way that we can approach this? Because if we do it in the wrong way, we're probably going to find it very, very stressful. And this is where a lot of coaches find themselves. They find themselves in a scenario where ultimately what they're doing is overwhelming. If I said to you right now, hey, I would like you to make 5 to 10 pieces of short form content today. I also want you to do a podcast or a YouTube video or both. I also want you to send an email. I also want you to speak to all of your leads in the DMs. And I also want you to do a strategy which is going to get people to come to you. You'd probably have your mind melt and you'd go, how the fuck am I going to do that? Or you go, I'm up for a challenge. Let's go for it. You dive into it and probably very, very quickly burn out a bit. Understandable, right? Because what I'm asking you to do there is actually quite a large volume of work if you don't have the right strategy, which is what I want to show you today. And this is exactly what the daily marketing block is about. It's about giving your business an opportunity to have multiple touch points with clients and leads, to convert them on your ideas, convert them in the way that you work, show them that you're an expert, an authority, and that you are someone that should work with them. This allows you to market more efficiently, it allows you to put more offers out, and like we said before, we know that 5 to 10% of our audience at any one point is going to see any of our Instagram posts, for example. If someone doesn't see my Instagram post today, I know that I'm going to be in their inbox. Or if someone doesn't see my email today, maybe they go and watch a YouTube video in their lunch break or something like that. There's so many different ways that people can consume your content that you are just giving yourself so many more swings at bat. Is that saying bats at swing? Swings at bat? Swings at base? I'm not sure. I'm not American. I don't know baseball terms. But here's the thing. The way I see this is if you woke up every single day and did nothing for your business, you didn't market it, you didn't talk to anyone, it's like having a pile full of free lottery tickets. If I sit there and do nothing, there's no chance I'm going to win, right? But if I cash in one of those free lottery tickets with an Instagram post, that Instagram post has the possibility of moving someone closer to a buying decision or even reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like to work with you, or taking action on a call to action, right? That's pretty good. It's a free lottery ticket. All it cost me was my time to put it out there. But what happens if I then go and I send out an email as well? That's like me cashing in another lottery ticket. And then I put a long form piece of content out. That's another one. I maybe make a lead magnet. That's another one. Maybe I send out some messages to people who've been engaging with me. That's another one. Every single action that we take is a lottery ticket, which has the possibility of winning. And winning in our scenario looks like people joining and becoming clients of ours, and we can work with them long term and change their lives. So this is the mindset that we want to go into this with. And I want to walk you through every single step of that today. Okay, so how are we going to do this? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up with, like we say, the idea. We want to know, okay, what do I actually want to talk about today? Because it's all well and good us going, oh, just go and make this, but there's no strategy behind that. So we want to come up with the idea. Now, with regards to what we do with clients, typically we work through some course series that you can use inside the business, which basically means that you are constantly having ideas for your content. You never run out. But some really simple questions. If you're sat there at home and thinking, how can I do this? Here's some really simple questions that you can go through. One of them is problem, solve for client. Okay, like we said at the start. Problem solved for a client. What did you solve recently for a client in a check-in? What did you solve recently for a client in one of your WhatsApp messages? What is a problem you solved for a client when they had a bit of a panic and something went wrong? What did you do recently? That's a really good one. So actually, this topic was off the back of one of my clients messaging me, and I thought, you know what? Let's dive deep on this in a webinar for one of our clients. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is, what does my audience need to know? What do they need to know? What do I feel is so valuable, so useful, so important that they need to know to get to the outcome they want? What do I feel like they need to know right this second, right now? What is so important that I can't left it unsaid? Because if you know that, it makes your life so much easier to go, well, I know that I've got to talk about this. Again, this is a topic I'm really quite passionate about in a lot of senses, because I feel the blanket advice of send more DMs, post more value is such bullshit. It's got no strategy behind it. And people are left just constantly going, okay, but what do I make? Like, this isn't getting clients in. Yeah, because it's not got any strategy behind it. Okay. So what do my audience need to know? What can I not leave on the table and just be like, what can I what do I have to know right this second? It's a really, really important one. Okay. And then the third question you can ask is, what is it that you do? So what do I do? How do you help your clients get to the result that you help them to get to? What is it that you personally do to get the results that you get? Walking through the strategies, the systems, the unique coaching systems and mechanisms that you use, it really paints you as an authority, because you go, hey, I know my shit here. This is where we've got this client result, or this is where I've got a result myself. Here's the framework we use, and it's different to everything else that you've seen out there. Okay, that's how we do this. So those are three really good questions you can ask to get the idea. Once you have an idea, you then want to go on to the next stage. So essentially what I will do off the back of this is I'll take this idea and I will then go to an AI. Now I want to make a very, very important statement here with AI. I have some, I can't talk today. I have some really, really strong rules when it comes to AI and using them with clients and people in the world. I think AI is unbelievably incredible. It is probably one of the most amazing innovations and tools that we have had in the last, couple of decades, because even before it was mainstream, we still had, versions of AI. It is unbelievable. However, I feel that right now people are so reliant on AI that we're getting this kind of AI slop churned out, and it's very generic. It's very boring. It's not really something that we essentially want to kind of be consuming. And as a result of that, we're just getting this cascade of everyone doing the same stuff all of the time. When it comes to using AI, my hard and fast rule, at least in this circumstance, is never ever use AI in a way which it impacts your communication with clients or your audience. So essentially, you don't want to use it in a way which takes away your authentic, unique voice, thoughts, opinions. So that might look like, write me a post on XYZ, write me an email on XYZ. We would never ever do that. What we want to do is we want to use AI as a tool to speed up the processes that we would normally have to do manually. So for example, if I have this idea here and I wanted to turn it into a piece of content or an idea for a piece of content, I'd probably have to sit down and write out a bunch of scripts and kind of sit there and think on it and stuff and go through all these sort of different things, right? And it would take me a bit of time to organize it, write it out, write the scripts out, etc., etc. In the past, that might have taken us 20 minutes, half an hour. Now with AI, we can do all of this in 5 minutes. And this is where really the time-saving steps come in. Because like I said before, if I just said to you before, hey, I want you to go and do all of these things in a day, you'd probably feel a bit overwhelmed. And very, very reasonably, that is, of course you would. Of course you would feel overwhelmed. It's ridiculous to do all that in a day if you're doing it in the wrong way. Now we can do this in 5 minutes with AI. So the first step that we'll do is we'll go through and we'll use an AI. I personally like to use Gemini and Claude. I actually think they're far superior to ChatGPT. However, we do also have a bunch of tools that have been really well designed for ChatGPT. If clients of ours want to use these, we've got stuff to support that as well. But I like Gemini and Claude. And what I'll do is usually I will go through the process of, first of all, going, right, this is the idea. I'm going to make a podcast or a YouTube video on it. I want you to take my ideas, and this is the important part of the prompt. Act as a content generation specialist. I want you to take my ideas. I want you to use exact sentences, exact words, exact thoughts, and I want you to structure the next things I'm going to say, not generate them for me. I want you to structure them into a podcast structure, organize it, make it a little bit more coherent and less messy, essentially. Okay. So we'll go through an AI chat and I will send that AI a voice note. I will basically usually whip out my treadmill in the office, pop it on, and I'll just walk for 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll go through and I'll say, hey, this is the podcast I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about that. So what I want to do first of all is I want to talk through X, Y, Z, and then I want to go over this thing and I want to go over that thing. And then I want to make sure that I make this really important note in here and say blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to go on to like 5 things that you have to do to X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'll literally speak it through. So I'll say, when I'm talking about the first thing, I'm going to go into this and then I'm going to say this. And I'm thinking maybe something around this. And I need to find, actually, there was a study on this, but I can't remember the name of it. So if you can search up what that study was and just generally what it said, that'd be really useful. But it was something about this and they did X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was in 2002-ish. Okay, cool. Step 2, I basically explain every single part of this podcast, right? So that when the AI goes away and generates it, what it will do is it will create me a structure that I have generated, not something that I've just gone and said, go make a structure for me. I've said, hey, take all of my thoughts, take my voice and put it into a layout which makes sense for a podcast, right? That is the best use of AI in my opinion, because that doesn't interrupt my unique voice or how I do things. Okay. So once we got this structure, the next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is actually go ahead and record a podcast. Okay. Now for some people, you haven't done a podcast before. This could also be a YouTube video if you wanted to, but I think podcast is the easiest way to get into this because it's the lowest bar, and you can still get stuff on YouTube with it. Okay. So once we got the structure, what we're going to do is we're going to record a podcast on something like Riverside could be good. If you want something that's paid and does some of the tools I'm going to talk about in a second on here, or you can literally use the Voice Memos app on your iPhone or Android. I don't know what the Android equivalent is. Or you can use something like Zoom if you're going to do a guest speaker or something like that. Okay. It really doesn't matter what you're recording on. I can promise you that. A lot of the podcasts I've released in the past, I've been recording on my phone. If you are recording on your phone and you want to do some like AI noise cancellation stuff like Riverside has it already built in. But if you want to use it just off your phone recording, you can use something like Adobe podcast, I think it's called. I was using that for a long time. You pop it in, it gets rid of background noise. You can just, basically just make it sound a little bit better, a little bit more studio quality. So you're going to record on to one of these platforms, and then essentially you're going to upload to 2 places. Spotify for podcasters, which basically on there, you can post to Spotify, but you can also I post mine to Apple, and I also post mine to Amazon as well. So you're going to post onto there and you're going to post onto YouTube as well. Now, the way that you're going to record a podcast, you can just do with voice, but if you want to literally record a podcast with a camera on as well, to change nothing else, you're literally just doing it with video as well. Now that can become a YouTube video as well. Okay. And it can be used to chunk down in clips, which is why I suggest a tool like Riverside. When you go ahead and you post onto these 2 platforms, what we want to consider here is how can I be smart with my time? Because so far we have spent about 5 to 10 minutes coming up with the podcast idea and getting the structure. Then we go straight into recording. We're going to go with a really low effort setup for your first few podcasts. So essentially all you're going to do is either just do it on your phone or use a tool like Riverside. And that's going to take you however long it takes to record the podcast. Let's say you talk on your podcast for 30 minutes. We are currently 35 minutes into this process. We've come up with an idea and we've recorded an episode on it. And the best thing about podcasts, like you've heard me in this podcast here, I don't have to deliver everything so perfectly word for word that, I have to stop. Like when you're recording a short form piece of content, you have to be concise. You have to be to the point. If you fuck up, you have to start the sentence again. If I trip over my words in here or I stumble on this a little bit, 1, it makes me more human because I am a human being and I don't speak absolutely perfectly all the time or always pick the exact words I need to use. Sometimes you make mistakes, right? But the second part of it is that it's just very natural. Like you just carry on, you correct yourself, you carry on. So it's a really, really easy process. You literally just have to start recording. There isn't 5 recordings or anything like that. You just record. Okay. If you've done it audio only, you can upload that. If you've done it with YouTube, for YouTube as well, with video, then you can upload to YouTube as well. Again, tools like Riverside, you can post to these platforms even easier. They're integrated with Spotify and stuff like that, so it can make it even easier. But the amazing thing about Riverside is that you can also get a bunch of clips from this. So you can get multiple reels out of one video. Now, look, caveat to this, or an important note on this, they're not all perfect. It edits it to get some really good ones, and it tries to make them decent, but not all of them are the best clips in the world, but you can at least get a few more pieces of content on here. I would say on average, I get anywhere from 2 to 3 to sometimes 10 off of these things. And even if you're not using Riverside, there's another option of using something like Opus Clip. Opus Clip is basically just a website. You upload a long form piece of content. If you've uploaded it to YouTube, you literally just put the link in and then it'll analyze it. It'll do some captions and all of that stuff, all the design for you. So you can literally just go ahead and post them. Again, it'll give it like a score rating and stuff like that. And it's really, really easy. And again, you don't have to do anything extra to do this. It's all built-in features, which makes it so amazing because all we've done so far, idea, script it out with an AI, which took us 5 minutes, and record a podcast. You click upload, everything else is done in the background. Now, for the clients we work with, we also use an AI tool at this point, which we've trained, and this is basically an SEO bot, we call this. So the SEO bot it will take the transcript from your podcast and it will turn it into highly searchable and high performing SEO description and also title for your podcast, and essentially churn that out instantly for you. So you can paste these into whatever app you're using to upload this. And now you've got something that's super searchable as well. And again, what have we done there? We've taken a process that might have taken us 10 minutes and we've done it in literally 60 seconds. So we are currently 36 minutes in. Once you have your thing uploaded, you copy the transcript and you paste it into a ChatGPT, custom GPT, and now you've got that done. You do it. What this also does is it also generates you an email. Now, this email, we don't have to worry about this not being in your voice because this email isn't a full email marketing type email. This is just an email that points someone towards your podcast. So the email is generated, and again, it is using direct quotes, thoughts, lines, everything from your podcast transcript that you've literally just spoken on for, again, 30 minutes. It has 30 minutes of your in-depth thoughts, ideas, opinions, caveats, everything on a topic, and you speaking in your normal speaking voice. Like, this is how I talk. This is how I talk to people. It has that, and it uses that to create an email going, hey, basically, I recorded this podcast. It's really good, or this video, whatever it is. I recorded this thing. It's really, really good. Most people make a mistake in XYZ ways when they're trying to, whatever the podcast is about. But actually, there's a better way. And in this podcast episode today, you're going to learn blah, 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 or whatever it is, right? It generates a short little email that just goes, hey, I did this podcast. You're probably making these mistakes. Here's the better way. And this podcast covers it today. Click the link below. That is going to be in your voice, although that can't really be that much fucked up, right? Because it's pretty standard. But it generates an email off the back of that. So in 36 minutes, we have a podcast, we have an email pushing people towards a podcast, and we have a bunch of clips coming off the back of that. That alone is already more than most people do and most coaches do to market their business in a single day. But we're going to take this a step further. Once you have posted this podcast episode or this YouTube video, again, this could be a YouTube video. It doesn't have to be a podcast. I'm just talking through podcast episodes because I feel it is the simplest and the easiest way for you guys to get started with it. Once you have posted this piece of content, what you're going to then do is we're going to take the transcript and we're going to use that transcript to create the first draft of a proper email marketing email. Okay, so we're going to take the transcript, the words that we've got on our document, and we're going to feed them in to another AI bot that we have. Now, again, when people come to email marketing and writing emails, I feel like a lot of people are really worried, and they should be actually. They should be worried. In fact, I don't think enough people are worried about this. They should be worried about it being unique to your voice, your opinions, and your thoughts. Now, if you've just spoken on a topic, again, in depth, the pros, the cons, the caveats, the everything, for 30 minutes, you have a unique voice and topic and real in-depth insight into what you would normally say about this topic. But we're not just going to leave it there. We're going to take that transcript and we're going to plug it into an AI bot. That AI bot is going to use, first of all, the transcript. It's then going to ask you around 3 to 5 questions. And it's going to use those questions to then structure. And again, I really want to be clear on this. It doesn't generate an email for you. I've been working on this really, really hard. It structures the email draft for you. And we're not going to just use the AI output as it is anyway, okay? So it takes exact sentences, exact thoughts. It takes exact dialogue from the podcast that you just used. It might clean it up a little bit if you've got a bunch of like filler words in there, but it will take exact sentences. So if I said, one of the biggest things, that you kind of, you need to do when it comes to weight loss, it would clear that up. It would take away the knows and the kinda. It would go, one of the biggest things you need to do for weight loss, that kind of thing, right? So it simplifies it, it clears it up, and it will generate you a first draft based off of all the stuff that you have already put in, the transcript and the questions. But it also asks you then, drop me a voice note. And that voice note, you're going to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes on this, filling it out. So we're now at 41 minutes in, because this honestly doesn't take too long at all. You take the transcript, you're sending another voice note, and you're answering specific questions on this email, and it will generate you the first draft of your email. Okay? Now, why I say first draft, I never, ever, ever just take that email and plug it in. Again, when I'm doing this, I'm using actually the Gemini Gems version that we have, which is similar to a custom GPT. It's just done with Google's Gemini, because the language is more natural, and I find that it's better at formatting it than ChatGPT. ChatGPT does a lot of this stuff that's like, it's not this, it's that. You're not failing, you're just recreating, or like shit like that, and I fucking hate it. Gemini, I feel, is way better, and Claude is the fucking goat of copywriting. If you want to get help with copywriting, Claude is the go-to for this, okay? Anyway, it generates the first draft. We then take that first draft and we take it into our email marketing platform. Personally, I use ActiveCampaign. And what we're going to do is we're then going to, 1, humanize this, and 2, write this in our own voice, okay? Which I suppose is the same thing, isn't it, really? Humanize. What I mean by humanize is we don't want this to be just generic kind of AI generated stuff. And again, anytime you put something into an AI, there is a risk of it being a bit like, mutated a little bit. So we want to use this process of humanizing it and then own voice. So first of all, I'm making sure it's structured in a way which actually I would talk. And number 2 is, if I go through something, it should be mostly in sentences I've said in the podcast. However, every now and then there's a little thing that slips through the gap, and I go through and I change it. I basically rewrite the email based on this first draft, and sometimes I change things. This process, if I'm being really honest, this is probably going to take you, I usually spend about 20 minutes on this. So let's say we're adding this on. We're now at, what we were on before, 41. So we're on 61 minutes. We're an hour into marketing our business. We have 1 email marketing email put together, which is on the topic we spoke about today. We have 1 email pushing people towards the podcast that we just recorded on the topic today. We have a podcast which we recorded today, and we have multiple AI generated clips from the long form piece of content that we generated today. And that podcast is more than likely on 2 platforms, a podcasting platform and on YouTube. We are miles ahead, miles and miles and miles and miles ahead of what every other coach out there is doing it, because every other coach out there right now is pretty lazy when it comes to their content. They put a post out, they hope people come off the back of it. They spend all their time stuck in one of 2 camps. They're either creating content that goes for the vanity metrics, views, likes, engagement, or they're creating just value content, and they're just slapping people in the face with information, and people don't see enough proof for them, or maybe don't connect with them enough. And both of those camps struggle to sign people up. when you go about it this way, you are touching on like pretty much all the bases of where people need to connect with you to move you up the timeline and to essentially get someone to a point where they want to make a purchasing decision. Okay. So the idea that we have at the beginning is essentially the topic that we can go ahead and create content from. And then that kind of is, is this more attraction-based content? Is this more value-based content? Is this something that's more driven towards sales? But ultimately, this makes sure that we're touching on all the different points of that timeline, again, to move people up the timeline faster. So we've got all of this stuff right now. We've just written an email. We send that out to our audience, and we're an hour in. We're 61 minutes in. Now, we're going to use the email and the transcript. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these, because again, now we've really touched in depth on topic, and we're going to use this to either chunk it down into a carousel, which can be really easy. I did one the other day. I literally took my email and I just copied, sent parts of it over into Canva, and then I just added visuals along the way to make it really simple. So you can chunk it down into a carousel. You could use AI to simplify it into a carousel. So you can then go and create that carousel. And again, you're not just blanket saying, make me a carousel. You're just using the ideas and the thoughts you've spoken about in depth on here. Or we can write a script, again, using AI. Because again, really want to stress this. This is all in your voice because you've spoken about it in depth and talked about it in depth in a podcast or a long form piece of content, and you've added extra context to it with AI before. You could either get it to write a script and then you could go and make a reel, or if you're an absolute G at this and you want to really take this to the max, you could do multiple forms of this. Often what I usually do is I'll do one of these, and then a couple of weeks later, I'll go back and go, right, that could be made into a reel, or that could be made into a carousel, or whatever it is. So there's multiple formats you can do here, but on average, I would say making these pieces of content can be anywhere between 30 minutes to 60 minutes. Okay, so at this stage, we are 91 minutes in to 121 minutes in, or an hour and a half to 2 hours in to the process. We now have an organic piece of social media content that we haven't just auto-generated from AI with the long form. We've put some actual effort into this. So this could be, you might go away and go, right, I'm going to do a street interview on this topic, or I'm going to go away and film a talking head reel, or I'm going to film something in the gym on this video, or I might do a voiceover style reel, or I might go away and do a comparison video, or I might go away and do a voiceover B-roll style video, or I might go away and do a video where I do it as like a challenge myself, or I might go away and use this as a piece of proof for my audience, or I might go away and use my own journey of why I did this as a piece of proof. There's a billion different ways you could create a piece of content. That's where your creativity comes into it, and you can use the AI to do it faster. But ultimately, you've got a really high-end piece of short-form content in there as well now, because that's something that you've sat down and spent a good piece of time on. We're an hour and a half in to 2 hours in. Now, the final things that you can go ahead and do is you can now either separate this whole flow onto its own thing, or you can continue the flow and carry on from there. Option one is you can choose a lead gen strategy. Now, for the ECB clients we work with, there's 170 plus repeatable strategies you can do every single day to get people to raise their hand. That's essentially what a lead gen strategy is you put something out into the world, it gets people to raise their hand, and then you can have a conversation with them. But if you're at home and you're listening to this, I obviously can't go through 170 different strategies here, plus people pay us for them. But essentially, this is something the simplest version of this might be a poll. What are you working towards? That's like the simplest one. You probably want to put a bit more effort into it than that. But it's essentially something that gets the conversation going. Or the second way you can go is you can actually go ahead and use the, so we could do poll, let's just call this independent, or you could go away and essentially create a piece of content which is then calling people to action. So you could say, hey, I just made a podcast talking about XYZ topic. So your lead gen strategy for that day could be a CTA post on your stories. Okay. And this is pointing back up to the podcast that you did earlier. All right. Or it could be to the email. You could say, hey, I just wrote this incredible email on XYZ. By the way, I've also seen people, just before we go any further, I've also seen people who've taken then the email and they've turned it into a blog post as well. So you're on another platform. Anyway, you could do a CTA post to your story. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Both of these lead into conversations because both of them are leading into your active lead generation. Okay. So essentially, what this does is you end up in a situation where you now have people voting on stuff or asking for stuff or getting stuff, and you can start a conversation with those people because they're literally asking for something from you. So it's not weird, it's not smarmy. You go, hey, here's this thing, you can have a conversation about it, and talk about the topic, and that makes your life infinitely easier. Okay, so the process that you're really going through here is you're taking one idea, and you're taking that idea, and we're doing something that we call evolution marketing. Evolution marketing is exactly what we've just spoken about today. We get multiple pieces of content and ideas and formats and styles and things generated from our content, and we do it from one idea by taking that idea and evolving it and mutating it into all these other things. So that idea becomes an email, that email becomes a podcast, that podcast becomes a short form piece of content, that short form piece of content becomes maybe even a lead magnet. There's a million and one different things that you can do with this, and you can do it in any way. It could become a blog post, like we said. Some of the stuff we make them into actual like GPTs or lead magnets for the business. A lot of the clients we work with maybe then take them and put them into other AI tools and format them. It's like the possibilities with this are endless. And on average, if you are getting into the flow of this, the first time you do this, it's going to be a little bit clunky. Of course it is, right? It's the first time you do it. But the idea behind this is once you have done this every single day, all you have to do, you wake up, you look at what your ideas are, and you can turn them into long form, short form, active lead generation strategies that get clients to raise their hands to you. And what did I go through? Long form, short form. Oh, and organic social media short form. That is what we call a daily marketing block. And it means by lunchtime every single day, you have done everything that you need to do to market the business, get people interested, show the world you exist, and convert people into paying customers and clients. It's a no-brainer. It's one of the easiest strategies you can use to grow your business. And yeah, it's been game-changing for me and also for the clients we work with, because it is a framework that you can rely on. It doesn't change. It doesn't rely on motivation or anything else. You literally just show up. And it goes into our wider strategy of what we call the calibrated calendar, which is essentially on non-check-in days, you wake up, you message your clients, and then you go into your daily marketing block, and that's done by around lunchtime every single day. And then your afternoons are open to build and work on the business. If you are running a little bit behind, you can use some of that building block to do more of the marketing. It's like the easiest thing in the world. It makes you an incredible coach because you focus on your clients. It simplifies your day so you're not always firefighting and going, what the fuck am I meant to be doing? You have an actual strategy and framework to go with. And off the back of it as well, you can work on the business and improve it outside of those hours. Now, the version I showed you today is quite a complex one. Sometimes you wouldn't do the long form content, right? I'm not creating a podcast or a YouTube video every day. You could do if you really want to go hard on this, but you don't have to. Some days you might literally just do an email piece of content based on the email and talk about the same topic, a lead gen strategy, and have some conversations and reply to DMs. That could be it. Other days you might go full whammy with it and go, right, we're going hard on this today. Let's get it done. So it makes your life so much easier and so much more stress-free. The change that I've seen in my business from running this has been unbelievable. Honestly, absolutely unbelievable, because I no longer wake up and go, oh, what the fuck am I meant to be doing today? Oh God, why isn't this not working? I wake up knowing that every single action I take moves people closer to becoming a customer and a client and working with us in the ECB. And it's simple. I'm just relaxed. I'm just like, yeah, cool. I just run in. It runs so smoothly and so easily off the back of that. And there it is. That's absolutely everything that you need to know. Now, if you would like to see how this can fit into your business, then you can send me a message on Instagram, Jack Symons Official. Just send me the words DMB, and I will ping this over to you in more depth, and we can have a little chat about how this fits into your business. Or you could go away and set this up for yourself. I mean, that's literally every single step of it there in action. And you could do that off the back of this. Take this, plug it into your business. It's game changing. It's absolutely fundamentally game changing. But if you do want to work with us on this and get support on all of this and everything else in your business, then you can send me the words or letters DMB, Delta Mike Bravo, and I will have a little conversation and see if this might be a good fit for you. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. If you've been listening to this, I hope this has been as game-changing for you as it was for me and has been for me in my life and for our clients. I massively appreciate you guys listening to this. And as always, if you know another coach who is maybe struggling with their content right now, or maybe is like just frustrated and doesn't know what to do to move people towards buying and signing up with them, then send this over to them. Maybe this could be the thing that helps. The way this podcast grows, the best is through word of mouth. And ultimately, this is what allows us to get more incredible guests on. We've got a lot of people that we've been speaking to recently who we're going to get to essentially come on and do some guest episodes. And we've already had some fucking big names in the industry already for the size of this podcast. So I'm really excited to bring those to you guys. And as always, I want this to be the absolute best free resource to help you to grow your online coaching business that is available out there. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. And I will see you all in the next episode.